my drink of choice was the White Russians, right? So yeah. So started.
Not a bad way to start.
Not a bad way to start. Not a bad way. So I started drinking when I was 34. Started seeing the psychologist, and one night got lonely and horny. I'd never been to a strip club in my life. Figured it was time to do that. Figured I could get laid too. So I walked into the strip club, and I'm the guy who literally falls in love with the first one he sees. Oh yeah. I joke about it, man. It's weird with me. A lot of the times I joke about shit because I'm not ready to discuss that shit.
Yeah.
I walked in, girl walks by, I'm like, that's the one for me. So moved her in with me. After I moved her in with me, I found out she was addicted to cocaine because what was going on.
Well, how did you move her in with you? How did that go when you met her?
I go in that night.
This is a strip club in what state?
In Charleston, South Carolina.
In Charleston, South Carolina.
It's called Joe's Roundup.
Okay.
One hell of a name.
Okay.
So
never been there.
Yeah.
I've been to a few in North Carolina.
There you go. So walked into the strip club, saw Elizabeth there, and I pony up at the bar. She comes over and she sits down beside of me, and she's like, "You want to buy me a drink?" Well, I didn't know that drinks for strippers are, $30 a pop. So I'm like, sure. So they tell me how much that is. I was like, uh-huh. And then she's like, what do you want to, we can go in the private room if you want to buy a bottle of champagne. I was like, shit, that's a really good idea. Well, a bottle of Corbel was like $400. So I was like, okay. So we do that. And I'm here, I didn't know what to expect. I was hoping to get laid, but go back there. And it turns out I just wanted to talk. Is what I wanted to do. And so we spent a couple hours back there just talking about anything. And you could tell, looking back now, she was sizing me up. What kind of watch you wear, what kind of car you drive, where you live. You live out on Folly Beach? Oh, okay. So, sizing me up.
Doing her own social engineering.
Oh, yeah, doing all that stuff. And so I leave that night, come back a week later, pull her off to the side, and I was like, look, I said, I'd like to take you to dinner if you'd like to go to dinner with me. And she was like, she named this restaurant called Rue de Jean, which was an expensive French restaurant. I didn't know it at the time. I went back to one of my buddies, and I was like, I got a date. And he's like, you got a date? And I was like, I got a date. He's like, where are you going? I was like, I'm taking her to Rue de Jean. He looks at me, he's like, take your wallet. I was like, what? He's like, you'll need it. So I was like, all right. So I start dating this girl, and I had not, it was a mixture of that father aspect of mine, that wanting people to love me, going overboard in a relationship, and also just being out of the relationship with my wife was what it was. So
right.
I went, just immediately head over heels.
Yeah.
I love this girl.
Call it the rebound.
The rebound. So I ended up moving her in with me. Knew there were problems. Absolutely knew there were problems. She's got an apartment. I go to, I had planned on hiring people to clear out her apartment and move her stuff in, her clothes and everything else. For some reason, she didn't want to go back to her apartment. So I volunteered to do that. I'll hire people to do it. While I walk into her apartment, it's a fucking wreck. Just like a bomb went off in there, roaches every place, all this other stuff. And I'm like, well, I can't hire somebody to do this. So I ended up cleaning out the entire apartment, steaming the carpets myself, everything else, because I didn't want anybody to know about it. And, moved her in with me. She was still stripping at that point, and she would go off to her job. She typically worked on the weekends. She would go off to the job, show up at like 5, 6 o'clock at night on the job. I didn't go because I didn't want to be in that environment, but she'd go to work, and then typically she wouldn't come home until 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. And typically it was her calling me. She wouldn't be able to drive home. And I was like, so, a few weeks of that, you're like, shit, something's going on. So she had called me one morning, like at 10 o'clock on a Saturday, come and get me. And I was like, all right. And go and get her. She comes in and immediately crashes in the bed. I never went through a woman's purse in my life. That was the first time right there. So I went through her purse, found the cut. I didn't do drugs. So found the cut straw, found cocaine, the residue on the straw, found a little bag of shit and everything else, and it got me. I'm the guy that's very good about finding out stuff about people. At that point in time, I could crawl up somebody's ass, find out anything about anybody. So started researching forums about strip clubs in South Carolina. There's this one, it's like USA Sex, whatever the fuck, I forgot what the name of the site was, but found that site. They had a section on South Carolina strip clubs. Sure as shit, there she was listed in it.
Really?
So she was not only addicted to coke, but she was prostituting herself to support the habit. So found out all this shit while she's asleep in the bed. And go in as she's waking up. I go in. I tell her, I was like, hey, see, I didn't mention that she was prostituting because I was like, I can't help. I don't want her to know I know that. But told her I found the coke and everything else. Told her she had to stop. She starts crying. I don't do it that often. I knew she was lying. I was like, didn't want to have that conversation. But I was like, you got to stop. Oh, I'll stop. So she continues that same behavior. Weekends, showing back up 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, come get me. And what happens is it goes on for about 2 more weeks. And one morning she calls me to come and get her. I write a letter, leave it on the bed, go and get her, take her back to the house where I'm at, get her in the bed and everything. I was like, look, when you wake up, got a letter here for you. I'm going to Columbia for the day. So the letter basically said, hey, if you can't stop this, don't be here when I get back.
Mm.
So that night I come back, she's quit her job, and that same night, as far as I know, she never did coke again either. But I didn't know this at the time, she supplanted the coke with alcohol. So, you had to do something. And I was like, okay, shit, the alcohol's fine with me. If you want to drink, as long as you ain't snorting anything, you're good. So
I think it's like it's a thing that goes hand in hand.
Evidently.
I
didn't know that
you
shit
get too
then.
drunk, you do a little bit of coke, and it
Sober
sobers
back
you
up.
up. Yep.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that. Still haven't done coke. I'm 52,
Really?
still haven't done coke.
You're not missing much.
Thank you. I told my wife, I said, when I get to be 70, 75, right as I'm cashing out, I'll do the meth, coke, heroin.
There you go.
I'll hold court in the street. We'll just do a shootout and everything else.
That's a great way to go, man.
If you're going to do it at that
I like
point.
your style.
So, but what happens is she quits that, and I get it in my head. I guess subconsciously I figured if I could fix her, I could fix me. I also figured, I'd win her love and it'd be just fine, and just keep trucking. Well, the thing with her, not sure if it was abuse or just didn't like me or what. I believe she did love me, but now it was this idea of I adopted this idea of give her whatever she wanted as long as it kept her mind off of drugs. Well, I didn't understand that strippers want everything. So every night, and I was stealing a lot of money. I'm this guy that created tax return identity theft, among several other types of crimes that I committed. All right, yeah. The reason your tax return is delayed is the son of a bitch that's sitting across from you today.